Alrighty, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday, January 11th, 2021, and I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to our first meeting of 2021 in the new year. I hope everyone had a great start of the year. And we have a very light agenda compared to our meeting in December, and which I think is all good news after that meeting back on December 21st when we had, I think it was close to 5 hours. So hopefully this one's not that long, which I know it won't be. So is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. We have the minutes of the previous meeting, which I will call the longest meeting of 2020, December 21st. Do you have a mover and seconder for those minutes? Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor? And that's carried, and I will note—
I'm just abstaining, Curtis.
Councillor
Curtis, I'll abstain because I was not there for some portion of that meeting.
Okay. And for anybody that's watching live on YouTube, you won't be able to see Sue's, Councillor Clark's square just because her video is not enabled because our internet out here in the rural areas is not stable. So that's why she will be participating just by audio. So during this meeting, we have at 7 o'clock, which is right now, we have a public meeting followed by a presentation by the Asaba Bayfields Conservation Authority, and then followed up with our staff reports and our and correspondence. So moving into the public meeting, we need to have a motion from council to resolve that the public meeting to hear zoning bylaw amendment Z01 2021 be opened at 7:03 p.m.
I'll move that, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor? And that's carried. And I'll have Greg, if you invite— oh, I see Nick's already joined us there. So before I hand it over to Stephanie, our planner, to go through the planning report, I just need to say that the purpose of the following public hearing for Adelaide Metcalfe Council is to give the members of council as well as the general public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to the application before council this evening. And the public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record available for full disclosure. If a person or public body files an appeal, a decision made this evening to the local planning appeal tribunal without having made a written submission to council, the tribunal may dismiss the appeal. If you wish to be notified of the decision, please contact Jennifer Turk, our clerk, by email or call the office. And I'll hand it over to Stephanie. No, there you are. Excellent. And before we do that, Nick, are you able to hear us? I see that you're on mute. If you just unmute yourself just to make sure that you're able to hear and see everything. I can't hear you. Greg, are we able to unmute him?
Yeah, I'm actually just asking him to do an unmute right now. Let's see if...
Not sure.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you cannot see me, but I'm fine.
Okay, but can you see us?
I can see. Yes, I can see you.
Okay, excellent. And just so everyone knows, this is for property 2890 Mulberry Drive. So I'll hand over to Stephanie to go through the report.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen with you there. So the purpose and effect of this application is to allow the owner to continue to live in their existing dwelling while a new dwelling is being built. Whereas the bylaw would normally only permit one dwelling per subject land. And the applicant is also required to enter into a temporary use agreement with the township and submit a deposit of $10,000. The existing residence would be removed upon the expiration of the 2-year period or the occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first, and the deposit would be returned at this time. The application proposes to amend the zoning of the subject lands temporarily from the general agricultural A zone to include a temporary use provision, so T-11 symbol, and that's in order to facilitate the construction of a second dwelling on the property. At the date of the temporary bylaw expiration, the lands will return to the underlying general agricultural A zone. Section 39 of the Planning Act allows the township to authorize the temporary use of land, buildings, or structures for any purpose that is otherwise prohibited in the Adelaide Metcalfe zoning bylaw up to a maximum of 3 years. The Planning Act also stipulates that the township has the authority to require the owner to enter into an agreement and to post security to ensure due performance. Section 3.1.3 of the township's official plan authorizes council to pass temporary use bylaws to permit second dwellings on the condition that adequate private services are provided to the satisfaction of the township. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the township official plan. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and we received the following written submissions. The Adelaide Metcalfe Chief Building Official has noted again that the $10,000 deposit is needed as part of this process. The existing dwelling will need to be removed 60 days from occupancy of a new dwelling. The permit for the second dwelling will be a conditional permit and requires an agreement. The existing well, if the existing well is to be used, verification of potable water supply and flow will be required. The proposed plan shows a new septic system, and the existing septic will need to remain in place and operational throughout living in the existing dwelling. And the removal of the septic will be required at the time of the removal of the existing dwelling. In regards to minimum distance separation, it appears that the new dwelling is not getting any closer to the existing livestock located on neighboring properties. And while this is an existing lot where a new building permit will be issued, it should be recognized that the impact of the surrounding livestock operations will not be any greater than what is currently in existence. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has noted no concerns with the application, and as of the date that this report was written, staff did not receive any comments or concerns from members of the public. So it is recommended that the application be approved in principle, limited to the first and second reading of the implementing bylaw, and further that the owner enter into a temporary use agreement with the township and submit a deposit of $10,000 to ensure that the removal of the existing residence occurs. And further that the final reading to be provided once the $10,000 deposit has been made and the temporary use agreement is in place. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Nick, do you have anything you'd like to add at all?
Yeah, the only thing I was worried about that it takes, you require 60 days to take the dwelling, the old dwelling down. I was asking if I can get maybe 120 days, because if it drags out too long into the fall, then it will interfere with my farm work. It gives me a bit of a bigger window to take the old dwelling down.
Okay. Would that be directed to Stephanie or Shannon?
I guess it was my comment, just based on a previous application that the township had approved prior to me coming on board. That's why I chose the 60 days, but I would leave that up to council to determine whether they would accept that. I guess we have the $10,000 deposit with the temporary use. So I guess so long as we would withhold that $10,000 till the house is demolished. Additionally, the temporary use is only good for 2 years. So within that time frame, that house would also have to be removed as per that agreement. So there are a few other leveraging items that council has to ensure that that does get removed and it doesn't remain in place.
Okay. Does council want to discuss that, or is there any Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
Yeah, I can't see building a new house and then leaving that old frame house in front of it for any longer than you have to. So I'm pretty confident that Nick and Wanda will take that down.
Mayor Smith, I'm comfortable with extending it to the 4 months or 120 days because he is running a farming operation. You have to give some flexibility. There could be weather. We don't know exactly the date of completion of the current construction either. So I would be okay with that.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon?
I'm in favor of extending it to the 120 days as well.
Okay. I think everybody's on board unless Councillor Brody want to.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. Is there anything else, Nick, before I go to our 5-minute recess?
No, I'm fine with it. We read through the whole thing and I think it's okay.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so right now we're going to have a 5-minute recess, and that'll allow any members of the public that has any comments regarding this application to join us. So Greg, if you want to throw that PowerPoint presentation up, I'll watch some good pictures about from Adelaide Metcalfe. Alrighty, we're back. That was another great 5-minute display of photos. Did we receive anybody? Did anybody join us?
No, we did not receive anybody, Mayor Smith.
Alrighty. So with that, is there any more discussion on this one, or do you want to jump right into the recommendation? Seeing none. So the recommendation is for approval, and that is for the first and second reading of the bylaw, and that the owners entered into the temporary use agreement with the deposit of $10,000, and that the third reading will be put in place after the agreement is signed and the $10,000 deposit is received. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that's carried. Okay, thank you so much, Nick, for joining us. And thank you, Stephanie, for joining us as well.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, take care. All right, and we also need a motion from council to resolve that the public meeting to hear zoning bylaw amendment Z01-2021 be closed at 7:19 p.m. Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And
Aye.
carried. Alrighty, so jumping into our next delegation, it's a presentation from the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority, and we have Brian and Marie here. Mary?
Mary, yep.
Thank you. All right, so I will hand it over to you to go through your presentation.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just going to start just because my name's on the list first, and just to clarify, when Jennifer was setting this up, you know, I informed her, and our budget, we put it out for review and back in October, and we actually passed it with our board did, including your representative, Mr. Harvey, back in November. But I agreed to Jennifer that, you know, I'll still come here in case there's some questions, but as you can see, there's no budget items on your agenda. And I'm leaving this mainly to Mary to give you her information. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Brian. Am I able to share my screen and bring up the PowerPoint or? Okay, great. Okay, so everybody can see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to thank you very much for inviting me to speak to some of the Healthy Watersheds program tonight. I'll be speaking tonight about some of the reporting that we did for the March 2020 fiscal year. The Healthy Watershed program does use existing municipal levy dollars to leverage provincial and federal dollars to monitor and engage with the community. And so I'll be presenting on some of those reports this evening. So the Healthy Watersheds program at the Asaba Bayfield really arose about 20 years ago to involve the community on local environmental issues. And it really is a two-part process whereby we are engaging with the community and also doing monitoring of the water quality and some of the biomonitoring that will help to inform local actions. This is the Asaba Bayfield watershed area. The Bayfield watershed goes out at Bayfield. It's about a 500 kilometer square watershed. And the Asaba River goes out at Port Franks, about a 1,200 kilometer square watershed. Adelaide Metcalfe is just a little bit of the Asaba River. And certainly some of the issues that are in the Asaba River are similar to some of the considerations for the Sydenham River. So some of what I speak to tonight would be consistent across your municipality. Some of the reasons that we do all these reports is because there's quite a bit of community interest in local environmental issues. We can think about the area in Bayfield or Grand Bend, but also there's quite a bit of interest from the rural community as well. And with the funding from the federal and provincial agencies, we're able to do some monitoring for biology, water quality, and land use. And tonight I'll just talk about a couple of projects that we're involved with, and I won't run through all of the 2020 reports that we did while we were in lockdown last spring. So the first up is the freshwater mussel information. So these are really interesting biological creatures that live in the Asable and the Sydenham River. And they're a clam type of animal. And they have a special adaptation that they can make with a part of their body. What that little part does is it wiggles around like a little fish, and it attracts other fish to come by because they want to eat the little fish that it sees. And when fish come by, the mussel releases the larva onto the fish that are going around and carry the larva around the area. You can imagine this is a good adaptation for riverine species, because if they didn't do this, their larvae would just all float downstream and they wouldn't be able to maintain any populations in the rivers. So in the Asable River, what I have here is a comparison of a common species, the three-ridge mussel, versus the snuffbox, a more rare species, over time from 2006 to 2019. And you can see with the more common species, it has any number, a normal distribution of ages, and it's well represented. Whereas the more rare mussel, it's a little bit disjointed and not as healthy a community. And we think the reasons for some of this are really related to some of the flows in the river and some of the sediment in the water column. If you can imagine, they would need pretty clear water to carry out their life history. And if the water is not clear, then they're going to have some limitations with respect to making the host fish come along and get the larvae attached to their gills. So that is one of the studies that we looked at. Another biological feature we're trying to get a better handle on and make nice graphs like I just showed you is for fish. But with the fish, they're a lot more mobile, so it's harder to do the sampling. And there's also different agencies involved, and so we have different methodologies. And what we're really trying to do now is really work towards having a very similar methods going forward so that we can compare fish populations over time. The next topic I want to bring forward is some land use issues related to wetlands on our developed landscapes. We're probably all aware that we have a low amount of wetlands on our landscapes, at about 2% for the Asable Bayfield area in general. And historically, we would have had close to 20%. There are different approaches to try to increase the amount of wetlands. There are policies. We could do some more outreach, and we could do some stewardship. And what we've found is that there are quite a few policies. It's just very hard to implement them with respect to some of the small sizes. The mapping and the enforcement that would be required for such a small area is very challenging. Where we have found very good success in working with the community and enhancing our stewardship to encourage more wetlands. So I'll just give you an example with the next slide here. And this is not too far from your area in Middlesex Center. And this particular farm had 38 hectares for wetlands. And after that project went through, adjacent landowners contacted the Conservation Authority to talk about some other projects on adjacent lands. And of course, these are really important for helping with improved biodiversity, water quality, and reducing flooding. So I think it's a good example of working with people where we can really make some gains. This project that I want to talk to you a little bit about is just the monitoring of best management practices. In Huron County, we're working with the Huron County Soil Crop Improvement Association, monitoring tile drainage, which is a field scale best management practice that can help to reduce surface water erosion, but might have implications for water transport downstream. And working with a collaboration of the farmers and some of the drainage contractors, we put in some innovative types of drainage, contour drainage and control gate drainage, some terraces. In a field over here, we also put in increased drainage just to compare drainage rates coming off of that field. So over time, working with our partners, we'll have a better sense of water quality measures to evaluate this particular best management practice. So this, the projects that I've talked about tonight really help us enhance our local environment. By working with our community, we know that there's been a big change over the past 20 years in people's interest in the local environment. We know best management practices have been employed in both our agricultural and our urban landscapes. And some of the work we do helps to evaluate how effective those practices have been at the site and watershed scale. And the community is wanting to know what the progress is on some of these activities. So working with them helps their knowledge and everybody's understanding about the implementation of these best management practices. Finally, I'll just speak briefly to the watershed report card process that the conservation authorities follow. Every 5 years, we put out watershed report cards, which is a way to link people with their local backyard creeks. I have a link here to our watershed report cards, but I know the St. Clair follows the same methods, and they have watershed report cards for other areas in your jurisdiction. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you tonight and to tell you a little bit about the programs at the Asabo Bayfield, and I'll be available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. I think the first time we've had a presentation from the Asabo Bayfield in quite a while regarding the programs that you guys have. Is there any questions or comments at all from members of council? Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Yeah, I did have one minor question on the budget, actually. I know over the years, our rates are relatively stable, but there's a tiny incremental rise every year. And I'm just wondering, how is the apportionment calculated?
Well, this year, if you look at it, we actually have a slight decrease.
Well, the decrease is overall, but in our apportionment, it's incrementally a little bit larger every year.
A little bit. It's still overall, it's still a decrease for Adelaide Metcalfe of 0.37. But it is, when I had that question raised to me by North Middlesex, I believe, and all the factors that go into it, and you guys will probably know it better than I do. It's for farmland, it's a 0.25 factor. For all residentials, it's a 1 factor. And we get all these numbers from the province, who gets it from MPAC, and they compare it to all our member municipalities, and then it all goes in together, and it compares everybody and how they rate compared to everybody else in the area.
Okay, I was hoping it was something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, I think I've shared that calculation spreadsheet, but if I didn't, I can certainly provide that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a spreadsheet with the different rates.
Okay.
All right, is there any other questions at all? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Have a good night, and hopefully it doesn't last 5 hours.
Oh, I don't think so.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, bye.
Alrighty, so jumping into our correspondence, our upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. So we have the Roma virtual conference, which is from January 23rd to the 26th. Our next regular meeting is, I believe it's scheduled for January 18th, but we'll be talking about that later in the meeting. So our next regular meeting would be February 1st, and then followed by the 16th. And then we have the OGRA virtual conference from February 21st to the 24th. So the first item for correspondence is from North Middlesex, and it's a public meeting notice for 9188 Townsend Line. Item number 2, which is, oh, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, you have a question about that one?
I just wanted to make sure I got the right one. Sorry. Yeah, that's the zoning thing, right? Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've spoken to the Adelaide neighbors of that property that they're looking at rezoning, and there's no issues on their part. So I don't think we should have any issues. Maybe even be supportive as it's helping out the local agricultural community.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And then item number 2 is part of the recommended readings, and it's from Strathroy Caradoc, and that's their OPA 11 notice of adoption, and that's regarding their downtowns in Strathroy. And the last one is under action required, and it's a resolution regarding insurance rates.
So Mayor Smith, I meant at the initial part of the meeting to declare a conflict with that one due to my outside involvement, and so I'll abstain from voting on that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, is there any, yep, Deputy Mayor, or not, Councillor McKinnon.
Okay.
Promotion.
I felt we should support it.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McKinnon. Do you have a second for that one? Deputy Mayor Hendricks, any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Alrighty, so let's jump into our staff reports, and our first one is from our drainage superintendent, and it's in regards to the Campbell Leach drain. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go over this just quickly. The background on the Campbell Leach drain, it spans 2 counties and 3 municipalities. There was an on-site meeting that was held in November for the low-level crossing replacement in Brook Elvinson that R. Dobbin Engineering had been appointed to. While at this meeting, Elizabeth Van Layrup, owner of Concession 10 East part of Lot 1, indicated that she was interested in a bridge crossing on her property as well. And sometime after, a written request was received by the municipal office. As we've talked about before, anytime a new bridge is constructed, it's considered an improvement to the drain, so that would fall under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. And this is somewhat different than normal. I certainly understand that Spreet & Associates is the standard engineer that is appointed to drainage projects in Adelaide Metcalfe, but given R. Dobbin Engineering is already appointed downstream, it is my recommendation that that company is also appointed for this bridge crossing as well. And that is my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none. So the first motion that we have is to receive the report. Councillor Brody and Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then the recommendation there, which is to appoint R. Dobbin Engineering as the drainage engineer for the Campbell Leach Drain project.
So moved.
Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. All right, so our next staff report is, oh, before I go into the next staff report, I missed a motion, which is resolved that council receive and file correspondence items CC 1 and 2. Councillor Brody and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that one's carried as well. So we'll jump into our next staff report, which is from our clerk. And you have a couple reports there. Jennifer.
Thanks, Mayor Smith. This report is regarding a tagging decision from council for the 2021 dog tagging. If council remembers, back in January 22nd, 2018, which actually some council members wouldn't have been on council at that time because that was before this council was officially elected in. Council was presented by a staff report from previous staff regarding a renewal contract for animal control services with Glencoe Animal Shelter. I've included the motion that was made that council accept the proposal for renewal for animal control services from Vicki Kyle, who's the owner operator for Glencoe Animal Shelter, with 3% annual rate increase. And that staff was supposed to bring the agreement back for council approval, and that has not happened. The second part to this is we've had Glencoe Animal Shelter since 2004, and they've done a great job for the municipality. They've supplied door-to-door service with the exception of 2020 due to COVID. So in talking with Vicki Kyle, she was wanting to know the interest with council to implement a 3-year tag for 2021. And she will do door-to-door for 2021, but there'll be no exchange of funds. We would bill them annually, and we have the means to do so through our Keystone program that has a animal licensing component in it that has never been used in this municipality. It's never been implemented. And there is a cost to implement that portion of the software of $2,800. And what we would do is the tag would include all 3 years. Vicki would do door-to-door with the tag, and then she would provide us with a list, and we would bill annually for the tag based on our normal fees, because with our past budgets, we have not been in a deficit with this portion of the budget. It's been user pay, and it has worked very well with the fees that are there compared to the expenses that we pay out for the service. So the financial impact, as you see there, there's a $2,800 animal licensing component for Keystone to activate it. And I was hoping council would approve to use the modernization funds because this is a one-time fee and it's just to activate that component to the software. There's fees for $11,000 plus the purchasing of tags at $550. And the township collects $14,400 to offset the expenses for the animal control services. So within talks with the contractor that provides the tags, they're recommending a brass tag for the durability for a 3-year tag. Unfortunately, that doesn't include with the S or O hook. And as council may or may not be aware, depending if you have a dog, they're not exactly very durable. So in talks with one of the council members, it's been discussed to implement 2 free replacement tags for the 3-year duration if council chooses to go with the 3-year program. And it would, because those S or O hooks are not very durable, it's just flimsy metal that's used to connect the brass tag. And we would keep the fees the same as we have since 2009. We currently have 494 dogs, and there's 364 properties that contain these dogs. So my recommendation is that council receive the report, that staff proceed with the renewal contract for Glencoe Animal Shelter as provided or as approved from January 2018. And I was thinking doing a 5-year contract. Resolve that council direct staff to proceed with the 3-year dog tag program. So for 21, 2022, and 2023, as recommended by our animal control officer, and that council approve the $28 fee for the animal licensing component in Keystone to be activated, and that the modernization funds be used to offset that expense.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there any questions at all?
I have some questions.
Okay, we'll go with Councillor Clark first and then Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Okay, so for the Keystone program, what if there's just a $2,800 activation fee, and then I'm assuming there must be an annual fee. to continue with it? Or is that just a means to collect the payment and it's a one-time only? And then you would again pay in 3 years when you use that service again? How does that work?
So through you, Mayor Smith, to Councillor Clark, we already use a lot of the components in Keystone, and we have a renewal fee that we already pay. So to activate the Keystone, it's just the $2,800 one-time fee, and then the renewal fee is what we already pay on an annual basis. So it wouldn't increase because we've got the animal licensing component. The only additional cost is just the one-time fee of the $2,800.
Okay, and my second question is, you're proposing that we enter into a 5-year contract with Vicki Stevens. So she is going to she's going to distribute the tags that are going to cover for 3 years. So I'm assuming her compensation reflects her collecting the fee as well as being called upon in a situation where we need her services. So how does that reflect fair dollars for work done in the coming years where she doesn't have to go to each property owner and get the tag? I guess that's where I'm at a bit of a sticking point and not understanding.
So through you, Mayor Smith, to Councillor Clark, that's where this agreement for the next 5 years would come into play, where we would have to discuss with Vicki with that, because for 2 years, 3 years out of the 5 years, she wouldn't be doing door-to-door, only 2 years out of the 5 years. So what I have envisioned is the agreement will be broken down by year for services. Because, for example, in 2020, she didn't do door-to-door, yet we still paid her the same fee because that's what the contract had been in the past. But going forward, knowing for sure that she wouldn't be doing door-to-door fees for 2022, 23, or 25, I envision that in the agreement, we would lay it out annual fees yearly plus call.
Okay, so that's not something we're going to discuss tonight. So,
No.
yeah, so that's good, because I just want to make sure it's fair compensation for work done. So thank you for addressing that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Yeah, my question is kind of along the same line. I guess I was envisioning that even though she wouldn't be handing out tags, at what point, so we know that a lot of people bought pets this year because they're at home. I mean, that's been all over the news. And I'm wondering what sort of system are we doing honor-based, just expecting people to call the township because they need a tag?
Yep, so through you, Mayor Smith, to Deputy Mayor Hendricks, as in the past and going forward, it's the responsibility of the property owner to let the township know. One good thing with doing a door-to-door in 2021, it'll capture those that maybe have bought animals due to the pandemic. We seem to have a fairly accurate list, and I have to say our residents are pretty honest, because for the amount of dogs that we have, we are able to offset those expenses for animal control. So yeah, it is based on the responsibility of the property owner to let us know.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments at all? Councillor Brody.
Through you, Mayor Smith, I would just, if we can't do a door-to-door in 2021 and we do a 5-year contract, maybe it'll just be the start of 2022 or the fall of 2021, as long as it's basically how many times we want her to do it, that'll all be reflected in the new contract, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, is there any other questions or comments? None. Yes, and Jen did bring this up, was really in regards to that hook, whether we go with the O hook or the S hook or whatever it is. I think that was one of the concerns that I've heard from the community, is that the tag itself seems to last, but it's that ring to go around the dog's collar. It seems to just stretch, or something happens if you hook the leash up to the wrong hook, it just doesn't stick around for a while. So I think that's one of the concerns. But if we're able to do the replacement twice, because then there's not that lower level of service that people are expecting to have a tag every year, then I think that's a great way to do that. And if we're able to get those items that Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks alluded to in the agreement, I think it's probably the way to go. So with that, we do have a number of motions. The first one is to receive the report. Councillor Brody and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
And that's carried. The next one is resolved that council directs staff to proceed with the renewal contract for Glencoe Animal Shelter as approved January 2018 by council for a 5-year term beginning 2021 to 2025. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that's carried. And the next one is resolved that council approve the $2,800 fee for the animal licensing component in Keystone to be activated and that the modernization fund be used to offset these costs. Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And that's the last motion for that one. Jen.
Mary Smith, can you please do motion 11?
Oh, did I skip one?
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's just to implement the 3-year tag. It's okay.
That's okay. So resolve that council direct staff to proceed with the 3-year dog tag program for the township for 2021, 22, 23 as recommended by the animal control officer. Okay, Councillor Brody and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor? And
Aye.
that's carried. I'm trying to do this whole paperless thing and not print off anything, and I moved my screen and didn't realize. Go ahead, Jen.
Sorry, yeah. So my next report is, and I'm not really sure what's happened. I'm noticing there's a bit of an issue here. My report isn't attached to the agenda, and I apologize for that because I didn't realize that at the time. So bear with me here. Of course, my computer goes to sleep. As I did have a report that went with this, and I'm just seeing that now it's not on there. But I do have a listing for council for the accounts payable for December 17th to December 31st for 2020. In the amount of $156,894.34. 16 of that is checks in the amount of $51,702.15. Pre-authorized payment is $5,924.66. And electronic funds transfer is $99,267.53. Out of that $156,000, $13,877.69 was paid December 23rd to not accrue interest over the holiday break. And the second attachment outlines the accounts payable that was paid for that day on December 23rd. What I'll do is I will add the staff report tomorrow to the website on the agenda because I'm not sure what happened. But anyways, it did not get attached and it should have got attached.
That's okay. The main part that we need to see is the account. So that's all good. Is there any questions at all on the accounts? Okay, seeing none. And if I don't miss a motion, the first one is resolved that council receive the invoice payment approval report, which we will be receiving, as presented by the clerk, acting treasurer, and council approve the account listings for December 17th to December 30th, 2020 in the amount of $156,894.34.
So moved.
By Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And the next one is resolved that council receive the invoice payment approval report as presented by the clerk, acting treasurer, and that council approve the account listings for the January 1st to 5th, 2021 in the amount of $3,505.85. Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. All right, so that is the end of our staff reports. We do have one thing noted under other business, and that's in regards to the January 18th meeting. And does Jen or Morgan want to take this one?
I can take it.
Okay.
So when we made the council meeting schedule, we scheduled for next Monday, January 18th, being a council meeting as well. And considering we're pretty good shape as being caught up, we've done our planning application tonight. I'm just wondering council's appetite to go ahead with that meeting next week or to cancel it and go to February 1st.
We have other meetings next week, do we not?
What's next week?
On the 20th or something? Is that next week?
January
We have
20th,
HR
council
meetings, I think, next week.
Yeah, on January 20th, council is doing interviews for the CAO process.
Yeah, so I'd be okay. Like, if you don't have enough meat for Monday night, I'd be okay deferring that meeting.
Yep. Councillor Brody?
Is there any closed session stuff that we need to be updated on that if we needed to have a short meeting?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Brody, I don't think we're going to have anything prepared by next Monday.
Okay.
I think if it's just going to be really correspondence and a few items, if there's nothing pressing, there's no sense of having the meeting. So, so with that, we need a motion to have council cancel the January 18th, 2021 council meeting, and that staff be directed to proceed or provide notice of the same on the township website and Facebook pages. Deputy Mayor Hendricks, second by Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that carried. Is there anything else for other business? Okay, seeing none. So we have our bylaws. The first one is resolve that council give the first and second reading to bylaw number 1 of 2021, and that's the zoning bylaw amendment for Z01 2021, and that the bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk. Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And before I get into the next three bylaws, Jen, you wanted to talk about bylaw number 2, which is the e-scribe agreement.
Yep. Thanks, Mayor Smith. I neglected to attach a report for this agreement. This agreement for e-scribe will take over what we formerly use now as e-agenda. E-agenda does not have a supporting platform in order to keep going and produce agendas as we currently do. So this is a new program with IT support from the County of Middlesex, where I can continue doing agendas, and it also provides support. Instead of emailing Morgan all the reports, I simply just have to put it in the program, and he can go into the program and find them that way. I don't have to worry about forgetting to send something or he forgets to look at something. It's got all the notifications built within that program. And with the surrounding municipalities, this is the program that they seem to be going to with e-agenda, not having a supporting platform or IT support going forward.
Excellent.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add real quick?
Yep.
So the only other thing I'd add to Jen's verbal there is council might remember that we went through a digital transformation top 10 collaborative project with our other fellow Middlesex municipalities. And this is one of the top 10 projects that came out of that collaborative service delivery review that was led by the county. So this is just keeping us in line with moving forward with our municipal neighbors. And that's it.
Excellent. Is there any questions about that at all? Okay, seeing none, so we have the motion to resolve that all three readings be given to bylaw number 2 of 2021, e-scribe agreement, bylaw number 3 of 2021, the interim tax levy. And for anybody listening live on YouTube, those dates are February 26th and May 31st, so mark those in your calendar. And then bylaw number 4 of 2021, confirmed council proceedings, and that the bylaws be signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal be attached.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And a motion to resolve that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:59. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, thank you, everybody.